Hello and welcome to Tech Raven. I'm Nigel Cooper and today I'm doing a review on these KNS 8402 headphones that are made by KRK, who are famous for making lots of monitors for home small recording studios. So I bought these recently from PMT in Cambridge. They retail at about £85–90. Now what I'm going to do a little comparison with my existing headphones. I've got a couple of pairs of Beyerdynamic DT770 Pros, and I've also got these Neumann NDH30 headphones. So the reason I bought these is because I had an old pair of Sennheiser headphones that gave up the ghost, so I figured, you know what, I'll buy a pair of these that I can basically use for vocalists that come into my small home recording studio here. So basically the way I work is, I've got my audio interface here and I will monitor using the DT770 Pros because these are closed back headphones, so you're not going to get any leakage coming out of them. And I had another pair that I had hanging over there on my microphone stand that the vocalists would use, these old Sennheisers, for when they're listening to the backing track. They were closed backs too. So I figured, you know, I'd get these and give them a try because the guys at PMT were raving about how fantastic they were. So I thought I'd get those that the vocalists could use. But they're not actually that good, and I'm going to explain why in a minute. I'm going to basically explain, because I'm obviously not going to be able to demonstrate how these sound because they're headphones, so you're going to have to take my word for it when I'm explaining about the sonic differences between these headphones. And I'm also going to compare them to some Roland RH300s. I've also got a couple of pairs of these that I don't use for mixing and mastering. I use these on my electronic drum kit, so I'll explain a little bit about that in a moment. So okay, back to these KRKs. Like I said, they retail at about £85–90 depending on where you buy them. Now ironically, on the KRK website it does say headphones for educated ears, and I'm not convinced about that. They also say KRK headphones are a reference that professional engineers trust. Again, I doubt that. I don't know of any professional engineer in the world that would want to use these particular KRK headphones because they're just not all that good. Now, if I compare them to my Beyerdynamic DT770 Pros, I've got two pairs of these, ATO versions. In fact, I actually have since taken delivery of another pair of these that I'm going to be using for the vocalists, because at the end of the day, it's a good idea if both myself and the vocalist have exactly the same headphones, so we're hearing exactly the same thing. Now with these, we wouldn't be hearing the same thing. We'd be hearing different sonic nuances entirely. Now the trouble with these KRKs is that they're kind of a little bit bass heavy, and the bass is a little bit boxy and hollow sounding compared to the Beyerdynamics and these Neumann NDH30s. Now the Neumanns, admittedly, these are an open back headphone design, but they weren't designed for a vocalist to wear in front of a microphone because you will get some sound leaking out because they are actually an open back design. These were designed by Neumann for mixing and mastering purely, and for that they are the best headphones I've ever heard in my life out of all the headphones I've used, and I've used loads. I've used the Beyers, the DT770s, the 1770s, various other headphones from Roland, Audio-Technica, Sony and Sennheiser, and these are by far the best I've ever heard for mixing and mastering. They do come in at about £550–600 depending on where you look. But they are absolutely phenomenal, but only for mixing and mastering. Like I said, you couldn't give them to a vocalist because they are not a closed back design, and closed back headphones are designed not to let any sound leak out and get into the microphone, so that's why I use these. So back to the KRKs. Like I said, the bass is a little bit on the boxy sound. It's a bit boxy and a little bit hollow, whereas the Beyerdynamics have got a much more weighty and solid bass that's more natural and just more weighty, and it's just got more slam and deeper as opposed to that boxiness. Now after I've been listening to the Beyerdynamics for 15 minutes or the Neumanns, when I put these on, the KRKs, it suddenly sounds like somebody's draped a really thick blanket over my head and I put the headphones on over the top and it feels like I'm listening to it through a blanket. There's some sort of filter in there. So if you couple that with this sort of hollow, boxy bass, it just doesn't really bode well. They're not bad. The mid-range is a little bit muddy, and for me the high end, you know, the upper mids and the higher frequencies are a little bit on the tizzy sound. And also on top of that, they almost sound like they've got a very mild kind of low pass filtering thing applied when they were tuning. You know, it's almost like the top end's been scooped off ever so slightly. In fact, it almost reminds me of those cassette decks that you could get back in the 80s that had sort of Dolby B and Dolby C. If you're old enough to remember those, you'll know that if a tape was recorded without Dolby, and then you flick on Dolby B, suddenly the top end gets chopped off. And that's kind of what these remind me of. So again, this sort of reference by KRK that the headphones are a reference that professional engineers trust, I wouldn't really buy into that. It's just something they put on their website. Like I said, to me, these are definitely not good enough for mixing and mastering by any stretch. There's something else that I noticed about the KRK headphones, and that's with the vocals and how they come across. Now, I've got various test tracks on my computer. I've got some Claire Martin, Donald Fagen, Go West, Grace Jones, John Hopkins, The Weeknd, various tracks that I consider to be sonically good quality reference tracks that I use for checking out various frequencies or various instruments, be it a kick drum, a snare, guitars, vocals, or the song on the whole. And I use these as reference tracks when I'm doing mixing and mastering, as well as many other tracks, and I also use them for checking out headphones and new bits of equipment as well. And what I noticed with the KRK KNS 8402s, the vocals sound just very boxed in and constrained, whereas with the Beyerdynamics and the Neumann NDH30s, the vocals are very airy and very open and very free. They just sound really good. But with the KRKs, again, they're just sort of boxed in, constrained, and they just don't have that openness and airiness of the Beyerdynamics or the Neumanns either. Now, the build quality is okay, and they're pretty comfortable to wear. In terms of comfort, they're about the same as the Roland RH300s. Now, in terms of sound quality, to me, the KRKs are a little bit better than the Roland RH300s. They're a little bit clearer, but I don't actually use the Roland RH300s for any kind of mixing and mastering, again, because they wouldn't be good enough for that. I use these purely on my Roland electronic full-size kit. I've got a TD15 module with a heavily updated and upgraded kit, and there's just something about how these work on my electronic drum kit. Now, all other headphones, be it Neumanns, Beyers, Audio Technicas, it doesn't matter what headphones I try on my TD15 module, the crash cymbals and the hi-hat cymbals always seem to be a bit bright for my liking, but these just tame all that down beautifully for some reason, so that all the top end gets tamed down, but only on Roland electronic kits. If you use them on anything else, they just sound like most other headphones. So for me, the KRKs are slightly, emphasis on the word slightly, better than the Roland RH300s. These Roland come in at about £135, give or take, depending where you buy them. Again, the KRKs come in at about $85.90. Now, for me, what I do like about them is you've got this interchangeable cable here that just pushes in and then bayonets in. But one thing I don't like about it is the cable itself, it doesn't hang right. It seems to have this weird kind of coily thing, and if you twist it around a few times, I don't know if you can see that, but it just kind of, it doesn't hang and drape across the floor. You're always twisting it and trying to get it to, it's kind of almost like a telephone cable, those old telephone cables that would just twist and coil, and you're trying to untangle them all the time and get them to de-twist. So I don't really like that about them either. In all honesty, they kind of remind me more of like gaming headphones that gamers would use, that kind of thing. They'd be fine for that, but definitely not for mixing and mastering. If you want to do any kind of serious mixing and mastering, then these Neumann NDH30s are the way to go. These are just the best headphones I've ever heard in my life, and they are beautifully smooth at the top end. I'm going to do another review on these separately, so I won't go into details on these now. If you can afford these and it's purely for mixing and mastering, look no further. If you can't, the Beyerdynamic BT770 Pros, I use the 80 ohm version because I have them plugged into an audio interface, and these retail at about 110. These are far superior than the KRK headphones. So that's my evaluation of the KRKs. I wouldn't really recommend them for mixing and mastering. The Beyerdynamics are much better, and the Neumanns, if you don't mind the open back headphones and you're only going to be using them for mixing and mastering purely, then go for these, or go for the Beyers, because you can use those for both mixing and mastering and for a vocalist to use. So there we are. I'm Nigel Cooper. You've been watching Tech Raven. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, click subscribe and click the bell icon so you can get reminders of new content. In the meantime, take it easy. Bye for now.